Yep.
Hey everyone, this is April from Ask Vinny Thompson team. Today we will be discussing about mortgage forbearance. We have a guest speaker, attorney Janese Thompson. So today Vinny will be talking at the same time with our guest speaker. So Vinny, take it away.
All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining. I welcome you, and I appreciate you letting me practice on you as I get better at my Zoom calls and engaging social media. Um, today I'm talking about this big buzzword called mortgage forbearance. So we don't have all the details. It seems to be something old but new. And I want to make sure you have all the information that you have in terms of if if you cannot pay your mortgage, if you can't pay your mortgage, what should you do? To think that it's generally okay not to do that is not the case. And you want to make sure to contact your bank above all else and make sure they even have that, being available. So I didn't just want to bring me, I want to have someone else speak about this, and that'd be attorney Janese Thompson, because we got to make sure, even as realtors, when we're speaking, make sure you have somebody who can help you in the background and really figure out all the details that you need. And even reading the bank wording is not easy. All right. So, Janice, do you want to talk a little bit about mortgage forbearance?
Yes. Okay. So hi everyone. Although Vinny and I have the same last name, we're not related. We just happen
That's
to
right.
have the same last name, which confuses a lot of people at times. But like Vinny's been doing this a while. I've been practicing law for over 15 years, and primarily my practice involves a lot of loss mitigation, foreclosure defense, and other real estate litigation and transactions. As a result of coronavirus, a lot of people are now feeling that they should not be making mortgage payments. And as Vinny said, that's not something that should be done arbitrarily. If you're working and your income has not changed, the best thing to do is to make your payment. However, if you've lost income or lost business or transaction, the best thing to do is to contact your individual mortgage company. For example, Chase Bank are now offering a 90 days forbearance. And when someone says a 90 days forbearance, a lot of times people are thinking that after that 90 days, for 90 days, you don't have to pay your mortgage. And currently, and I say currently because this might change as this coronavirus situation changes. But currently, what happens with this forbearance is after the 90 days, you're supposed to resume making your mortgage payments. If you cannot make your mortgage payments, then their bank will give you an opportunity to complete what's called a request for mortgage assistance. So you'll complete that form, but there's no guarantee that you're going to qualify and be approved and have the mortgage placed on the and for lay terms, I'll say to the end of your mortgage term. So if after the 90 days you complete a loan modification package or request for mortgage assistance and you get approved, then it could be more than likely put on the end of the term of your loan. In order to get qualified for that, each bank are going to have their own requirements. And one of the most important thing is not only submitting the package, but would be to submit all tax returns. So if you haven't filed your tax returns and you're not current, it's unlikely that a bank is going to give you a forbearance to put that money on the end of your loan. So it's very critical to make sure that you're up on your taxes, all your taxes are current. And also, if you seek a forbearance and the bank says you have to put in a request for a modification application and you do not have an income to justify being qualified, and the formula is pretty simple. It's normally if your mortgage is about $2,000, you'll need to be making at least 3 times that amount. And there are other issues that debt to income ratio. But it's important to be in touch with your bank. If you're not in touch with your bank, then you also, after you talk with your bank in the 90 days, you might want to speak with an attorney or to make sure that you know what's going to take place. So in the end, you don't end up losing your house to a mortgage foreclosure. What we need to keep in mind is that if the bank does not approve a loan modification or some forbearance that puts your loan payments on the end of the loan, the next thing you're going to be served with are mortgage papers for foreclosure. I apologize, not mortgage papers, but foreclosure paperwork. And we know the process is once the paperwork starts with the foreclosure, unless you're able to stop it, the foreclosure by a modification or other means, in the end, you end up losing your home or to a foreclosure sale, or you'll do a short sale. And I'm sure a lot of people don't want that to be done. Vinny, do you have
And that,
Go ahead.
yeah, and in addition to that too, I want everybody to be aware, if you absolutely don't have a way to pay your mortgage and you need this assistance, you should take advantage of it. Your go-to move maybe should be, if you have some savings, to try to pay it as best you can. No one to find out, the wrath of the bank who's saying one thing, but they mean another.
Right.
And also be aware, if it does turn to be a modification and if you need it, later on down the line, if you try to refinance, purchase another property, if you do have a modification on your credit, other issues. Is that correct, Janese?
Yes, there are issues. Once you have a modification, it's gonna if there was a foreclosure started, it's going to be much more difficult to acquire new property or refinance. If there's a modification, it's going to also affect the way you refinance, especially if the bank has started notifying the credit bureau that you're behind on your mortgage. During this first 90 days, there's not going to be any reporting of the credit bureau that you're behind on your mortgage. But after that 90 days, there's going to be a strike on your record that's going to show now you're 30, 60, or 90 days, and that is going to affect purchase a new home or refinancing.
And now everybody has a different situation in a different state and a different kind of loan. The main thing you're going to want to do is call your bank. And when you call your bank, find out what type of loan do you have. Do you have a Fannie Mae loan? Do you have a Freddie loan? Do you have a conventional loan? They're going to be the best people to tell you what has to be done, and make sure you get it in black and white. April, can we go to the next screen? So you're going to want to give them a call to find out what are the details of what you have to do when you call the bank. So there's a lot of people speaking in generalities out there. Yeah, it's a loan. Oh, they're forgiving a loan. There's 90 days. That's not generally true. You want to find out. And once you do find out, get it in writing, have them send it to you. I'm always a big proponent of getting someone who knows about mortgages, banks, an attorney, your trusted banker. Hopefully you have one. If not, go get one. Go by referral, to get somebody who can look at those documents and understand them, along with you, instead of you thinking, oh yeah, I'm good. Because many banks that I know of and friends of mine that have called said, no problem, we'll give you forbearance. And on that third month, we want those 3 months and that fourth one. So, just be aware. Once again, if you need it, that's one thing. If you really need it, but if you can pay it, you really should consider paying your mortgage. It's just someone who came out of, the whole mortgage crisis. I've been modified, closed on. I've had deed in lieu of foreclosure. I'm living the same thing you are. This is how I met Janese. We get into jams. But, would I do it again? I might have tweaked some things differently. So I'm just, being vulnerable here. But I
Right.
didn't have the
And,
proper attorneys and know what to do and what to do.
and as Vinny just said, not to jump in, but as Vinny just said, at the end of the day, no one's saying don't take these opportunities that are there, but just be careful and have
Right,
proper advice and know what you're doing before you jump into that, and make that decision.
right. That's real important. So when you call the bank, you get the contract, you know what it is, and you have a plan. Just be ready, and don't think it's free money. It's okay. This is affecting everybody. And I used to think, the bank is all right. They're gonna help me. Ah, but really, you want to help yourself by getting the best information that you can.
And when you call the bank,
In
make
terms
sure.
of, go ahead, go ahead,
Yeah,
Janice.
just one other thing, Vinny, and I promise I won't interrupt, but I think one other thing should be done is when you contact your lender or the bank, whether it's Chase, Wells Fargo, HSBC, or Citibank, make sure that you notate the date and time you called, and also write down the name of the person you spoke with. A lot of times these representative will have an ID number or some code or confirmation to make to so you have a record that you called. That should be important, because just in case a week or 10 days you do not receive anything from your bank, you want to be able, when you call, to say, I call on such and such specific date and time and spoke to this person, so that they could go back and check and to make sure that you're logged into the system.
That's really key, because in a minute the bank will say, we didn't hear, we didn't know, we heard from nobody. And with that ID number, you'll have your proof that you did. And many times the bank conversations, but to their benefit. So the next thing is, if you're like me and you have tenants, what should you do? What should the tenants do if they can't pay? Are you absolved of your obligation, as a tenant? Is there assistance out there for you? Once again, same thing goes for the owners. There's a lot of information out there in New York. Eric Adams said there's a bill he wants to start, and he's thinking about doing, or something to that effect, where it gives rent relief. Where does that leave me as a landlord? If you don't pay, and the banks are obligating me to pay now or later, I'm still on the hook. So there's no relief as of yet. So the same thing goes for the owners, that goes for the tenants. If you can afford to pay, you should pay. If adversely, sure, go for the help that you may need, but you still are obligated to pay that landlord. Same thing in recession. Not that this is that bad. If you said, "Oh, my landlord got a foreclosed letter." I had a foreclosed letter put on my door. Made a workout with them. I got a modification. So, hey, tenant, it's time to pay. You couldn't pay before, so this is between me and you. That's important to know. That's in the details. Things do happen. My mortgage like doubled when I had an adjustable rate mortgage. Went from like 2,000 to like $4,000. So the obligations that the tenants had to pay me still stood. Janice?
Yes. So as far as it's concerned, where it says, what about the tenants not paying and do you have to pay? I know now they have the president stated, and I also, as a matter of fact, Cuomo, under Executive Order 8125, has indicated that tenants does not have to pay the next 90 days, and the mortgage company should forgive landlords. As far
Hmm.
as that's concerned, that's something that Cuomo has said. And while these officials, they're throwing out all these figures and all these statements, that's something that would require more than just calling the bank and saying, listen, I don't have to pay because the tenants are not paying. So I think what needs to be done is you call the bank and you say, listen, my tenant's not paying. How can I take advantage of this executive order that was mentioned by Cuomo? And I think the way it works, and everyone is still it's not in the final stages as yet. Some banks, my understanding, will entertain that as long as you can have proof that the tenant has not paid rent and you provide that documentation. But a lot of times, homeowners, some people do not put it on their taxes. So, for example, if you have 3 tenants paying rent and you do not put it on your taxes, you cannot now seek assistance because your taxes would not have shown a record of that. Okay.
Yep. And
So,
I would advise, thank you. And I would advise those that do have tenants realize they're kind of in the same or similar position as you. They'll also maybe have lost their job. That may be true as well. And be, displaced as far as not having income. Same situation homeowners and landlords may be in. But realize too, you need to maybe help them and call your local town. We're in New York, and maybe if you're other parts of the country, call the local town, the municipality. Listen, my there was this place, what is there available to them? Maybe if they're business owners or dependent situation, maybe they can apply for unemployment as well, or those same PPE benefits, and kind of help them, give them the same resources that you would have or we have as realtors or homeowners. Explain that to them so they can also help themselves, and hopefully then in turn pay the rent as well, right? It all happens.
right,
People fall in
and you
hard
might want
times.
to
It
have
happens, but it's a matter of
right, and you might want to have a payment plan set up with your tenant to have you have the tenant make payments. You might want to say to them, if their payments were $2,000 a month, maybe you'll have them pay $1,000 for the next 90 days, and then after that, they could pay the balance over the next 6 months period. Considering that any tenant whose lease expires within the next 3 months will be automatically renewed at the same rate without an increase. And that is pursuant to that Executive Order 8125A. Vinny, hello?
right.
Okay.
And that's the key to make sure you have. Yeah, I'm here. Can you still hear me? Yeah,
Yes,
no,
I
this is what you,
think I
because
lost for a
some of the
minute.
stuff I didn't know as well. This stuff is changing so fast. It's a matter of how do you keep up?
Right.
From being quarantined to everyone has a different situation to the different loans. It's all up in the air, but you still want to make sure you get qualified people to help you, get as much information as you can, and rely on the professionals that are around you to get the best information, and not go by what the guy at work said, what your mom said. Try to get the best, solid, qualified information that you can to know how to make your next move. I advise everybody to call their local towns and municipalities to find out what is truly available to you. People, I saw a friend of mine call me and said, yeah, I heard that I can get the next 12 months of my mortgage. I don't have to pay. I'm like, no, you have to call your bank and find out what your particular situation is. That might not be the case. So you have to find that out for sure. Janese?
Yes, I'm listening. Right.
Yeah,
I,
so
I,
the,
I,
go ahead.
and I chime in with what Vinny said. Ultimately, you have to speak with local town or municipality. They might have eventually they might have some rental assistance or work assistance at the municipality. I'm not sure that's set up as yet. You might be able to get like that information. But if you're a landlord and
Okay, Zoom
say,
does not play around.
I'm hearing the
Go ahead. Yeah, could you guys mute yourself until we're doing question answer? Okay, feedback from non-muted. Okay, go ahead, Janese.
yeah. So I think if you're a landlord and you have a tenant or tenants that are not paying rent, the first thing, see if you can schedule some payment, giving like an assistance to your tenant without saying they cannot pay rent. And then contact the mortgage company and let the mortgage company know exactly the situation that you're experiencing with your tenant. And some mortgage company might allow you also to make during this time whatever partial payment you could make. So if your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, maybe you might be able to pay $1,000, and that makes it a lot less difficult to catch up with all the missed payments at the end of the 90 days.
And you said something earlier. I thought about, Janese. I got a call. I've gotten quite a few calls over the years of people who have needed a modification. And I said, let's sit down and discuss your financial situation, because you may have qualified for the loan when you got the home, but your finances have changed. Where, okay,
Right.
you can pay the mortgage and it may be a struggle, but you may not have the money to qualify now for a modification. That's a huge problem. And the bank, if you don't qualify, as I understand it, Janese does not have to grant you one. And that's a different situation that may force you into have to making a sale.
Right. Because what happens is, you maybe 10 years ago, your financial situation, you're making 10,000 a month, but now you're making 6,000 a month. You have kids, and you have kids in school. You have credit card debt, and the bank looks at your debt to income ratio in order to determine whether you will qualify for any forbearance of the loan, placing the money at the payments at the end of the loan, or any modification. The bank is also going to look at your gross income. So while you're able to make on a $3,000 a month mortgage, insurance, and taxes payment, you need to show approximately 9,000 a month and have a very low debt to income ratio. And a lot of times people are making 6,000 a month and they could make their payment and they scrambling and it's fine. But once you're unable to make your payment, you will no longer be able to be qualified for loss mitigation.
And that's the key. Going back to the rent assistance, I know one thing they also spoke about was possibly using a security deposit. As a landlord, I don't have a problem with that. That is part of a solution as we're really trying to figure out what's going on with this COVID-19. Give time for the flatten the curve, all that good stuff, providing some relief to people already stressed out about their financial situation. I was going to say earlier that we do have 40 minutes with the Zoom call. So if you have questions, you can either unmute yourself or put it through the chat. I know last time I did it, it was like 39 minutes and 59 seconds. You're cut off. So I want to leave more time if people had questions, to ask. Once again, I'm here in New York. You should check with your local people for those outside of New York to find out what it is. So if you have questions, you can just unmute yourself or put it in the chat box.
Okay. And Vinny, I just have one thing that I just want to expand from what you said about,
Yeah.
and if you have tenants, that the tenant says, well, can they use a secure deposit? If you have that scenario, make sure you have it in writing, because a secure deposit is to be used if a tenant moves out and the place needs to be repaired, or that's what it's supposed to be for. So you might have a tenant this month say, go ahead and use my secure deposit, but then when they move out, they're going to sue you for the secure deposit because they said, well, you use it for a month's rent. So you want to have something in writing. It doesn't have to be elaborate, where the tenant agrees that you can use the rent, the security deposit for this month's rent. And I would caution people that might not be the best way to do. I would still leave something in the security deposit. But if it's a good tenant, you could have the tenant use this month the security deposit for April's rent. But keep in mind that once the 90 days is over, you might want to have the tenant now replenish and put in the secure deposit. So at the time of the move out, if there's any damage to the premises, you will have that to recoup whatever expenses has to be paid.
I agree. The good point, Janese. I didn't think about that. Good point.
Right. So again,
So does anybody have?
simple writing.
Go ahead, Claudine.
Yeah, well, I respect everyone's opinions, but I would never, ever mess with a security deposit. I would much rather do a secure loan against the money for the tenant. But I think a bigger thing would be to try to find a way to help the tenant. You'd be surprised that those tenants are available to get some of the benefits that we're actually able to enjoy. So, for example, we may want to talk to the tenant about the programs available, unemployment. Some of those tenants may be 1099, and they could take advantage of those opportunities, both PPE and for the small business loan. So I think the bigger thing is to actually see what type of tenants we have and give them more education. I wouldn't mess with the security deposit, but I would take a secure loan against it for the tenant if I had to, or offer them a half off, because the rule for the CARE Act is if they are struggling, we cannot charge late fees. So those are going to be waived based on the CARE Act. But I would strongly suggest we educate the client, because there's relief for everyone, and there should be no reason why one shouldn't pay their rent if they're renting. However, if you are an owner of your own home, like you and I, you're paying your own mortgage, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go out and look for assistance to try to help. This wasn't a lazy move on behalf of a tenant or a homeowner or a worker. It was a government shutdown, and there's a lot of relief. I just got my account. I wish I could screenshot it. All but one tenant has paid, and I have about $12,000 in my account. Not one beat was missed. The person that didn't pay always pays on the 8th. So I'm desperately waiting for the 8th. And that's been going on for years. But all of my tenants have paid. I have spoken to all of my tenants prior to the big, notice of shutdown, just to kind of see where they were and what they were feeling and how they thought about this. And I educated every last one of them. So they knew, look, I know what's going on. I'm in the same boat. And guess what? I'm not deferring any payments, and neither are you. And not in a mean way, but just in an educational format to see what their mind was saying, because there's a panic, And thankfully, we're not New York and we're not the big cities, so we don't have a complete shutdown of everything. And I know my tenants, and I'm very fortunate in that a lot of my tenants are military, so they get paid regardless. But the 4 that are not military, because I have several properties, I have 10 properties, they were pretty much comfortable. None of them said, I'm worried about my job, or one of them told me they were independent contractor, had a business, and I gave her all of the information. I sent it to her, and hopefully she's applied for it all. And that's it. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Claudine. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Claudine, that was very informative. But unlike, I'm not sure what state you're in New York, you have Governor Cuomo, who has put in place an executive order that is somewhat different than in other states, which is what I discussed earlier. That the tenant does not have to pay for 90 days. Vinny?
To be determined how that's going to be covered. Yeah, to be determined
Right.
how that's going to be covered. If he's going to put
Right.
something in place where he gives some type of assistance, and I have been calling New York City myself to find out what type of relief there may be, in addition to what Claudine said, for those that may be, self-employed, all that good stuff. So,
Right.
all
But
right,
they
any more
also
questions?
might be able, if they're not able
sorry,
to
go ahead,
get,
Janese.
if the tenants are able to get assistance, I don't know what some are self-employed otherwise. What they can always do if they have it is go and try to get for Department of Social Services. They might be able to get funding that way too. There are a lot of resources for tenants. So I think it's important for the tenants to try to pay. But sometimes you have tenants that really do not want to pay anyway. So they're going to listen to everything that Cuomo or whatever the the leader in their community is saying to just not pay.
Okay, everybody. Thank you. If there's no more questions, Janese, I thank you for your time. I thank you to everybody that tuned in. I hope this was informative. Once again, call your bank, speak to your tenants, and communicate. And I'll be posting all those things about the PPE and all this other stuff available to us to try to help us get out this situation. We're in it together, and we're going to get through this. All right?
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, Benny. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank
All right.
you.